Welcome, everyone, to All Things Brunswick. I want to thank my co-host, Todd Osborne, for helping me this evening. Thank you, Todd. And, of course, our technician, TK. And, of course, all of you. So we welcome you to our show this week. We have some very interesting guests this evening. We have what I refer to as a first-timer.
Yes, ma'am.
Our friend, who is the Chief Public Defender for the 15th District, Mr. Jacob Ward.
Hello,
Thank
Mary.
you, Jacob.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And Matthew, your last name again?
Matthew Cunha, thank you.
Cunha?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. Matthew Cunha,
Thank you.
who works with Jacob. Thank you, sir, for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it very much. We are very fortunate in Brunswick County that we now have a public defender's office. We did not have it until 2024. It was started, and I think you were sworn in November.
So I got sworn in November of 23,
Mm-hmm.
and then the office actually took off on the 24th. The General Assembly
Right.
started my position immediately, and then the office positions January 2024.
Right. So that gave the 15th District, which is Brunswick, Bladen, and Columbus counties,
That's correct.
a public defender's office. And this is wonderful
It is.
because now those folks that cannot afford an attorney at least will have some kind of representation.
Yes, ma'am.
And if they get Jacob, they're really lucky.
Thank you.
Dumb question. What did they do before?
So before they started the public defender's office, which I'm very grateful the General Assembly saw the wisdom in doing it, and they actually, when they created my office, they created 8 offices across the state, which was huge. And our General Assembly was just instrumental and wonderful with it. They worked with our indigent defense services and said, what do you need? How can we help get indigent people representation? And they made a huge ask. And I'll be honest with you, they never thought the General Assembly would do it. And they gave them 8 offices, which was a huge undertaking. But before that, across the state where there were not public defenders' offices, you relied on court-appointed lists.
Right.
And the court-appointed lists would be maintained by private attorneys that were appointed per the judge to an indigent defense committee, and then they would determine who was on the list, who was not on the list, as far as the private bar goes. And then the judges would just appoint from the bench off of that list to private attorneys. And the indigent defense services would then pay those attorneys hourly. They were contracted, and it depended on what kind of case it was. For instance, misdemeanors pay $65 an hour. I think first-degree murder's the highest rate, which is $100 an hour that they pay for. So before that, that's what they did. But we started running into an issue 2 or 3 years ago where private attorneys didn't want to do it anymore.
Exactly.
They don't get paid enough on the
The
court-appointed
list
list.
got shorter and shorter and shorter.
And there was no one to take indigent cases, and there was only a few taking indigent cases. They were completely and totally overwhelmed. The system started slowing down because one attorney can only try so many cases. One attorney can only represent so many people. So there was a huge issue, and this was a statewide issue. And that was one of the things that General Assembly looked at, and they said, we believe, which is true, if we do a public defender's office, then we can invest in state employees. It runs more efficiently, and then there's still a court-appointed list, but the court-appointed list is now controlled by my office. So I add and take off, and the people on the court-appointed list are not as overwhelmed. They represent conflicts
Right.
that we have because we can't represent co-defendants and things like that. So they still get cases. It's just not like drinking from a fire hose.
That's become the turn of phrase here lately.
Yeah, if you look at it this way, we have 100 counties in our state. Of that 100 counties, we had 37 that had public defenders.
Right.
Okay, they increased it to 59.
think it is 59.
They have increased it to 59, but that's still far away from 100, you know?
Yeah.
And the people in those counties that needed representation just weren't getting representation. I mean, and even though, you know, our judicial system should be the plus that we look to when we need it. And I just think it's wonderful that we finally got it here.
I'm very grateful. I was a
yes.
prosecutor for 9 years before this.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw when we were having issues, and you could see like the cracks around the edges before it collapses. And it did collapse in some districts. We were fortunate and did not collapse here, but there were
Mm-hmm.
some districts where people were sitting in custody and they didn't have an attorney. And they didn't know what to do. And it got down to judges
Can you
saying,
imagine?
well, we're going to have to do this by conscription, which means that the judge makes an attorney, even if they don't want to represent somebody, which is
and
never
then
good.
and then how good of a
Yeah,
Right.
because they don't
defense
want to
are they
be
gonna
there,
have?
and they're
Right,
not going to do the best job they can if they
Yeah.
don't want to be there.
Judges don't want to do that. Attorneys don't want that to happen. Clients don't want that to happen. So the public defense system is vital, and I'm very grateful that we have it.
I am too. And they couldn't have chosen a better person
Thank you. That means a lot.
to lead it. Absolutely. Okay, so Jacob, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live and your family, and how long have you been here?
So I am from Whiteville originally.
Okay.
Poor
I
thing.
was born and raised. I was born and raised in Whiteville in good old Columbus County. I went to undergrad at UNCW. I went to law school at North Carolina Central. I got married after that, and my wife is a family medicine doctor. We live in Southport, so we love living in Southport.
Oh, I know. I loved Southport.
Yes, she has her practice there. She works for Dosher Memorial. She has an office on Atlantic Avenue. So, and we have 2 children. Harper, she's 7, and a son, August, is 4.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so we love it here.
I know, and we love having you both here.
And I brought my wife down from Richmond, and she loves it. It doesn't
Good.
snow nearly as much.
That's true.
She doesn't miss it that much, huh?
Not at all.
Now, you worked for John for a while.
I did. I worked for John David for 9 years, and I was the chief assistant district attorney for Columbus County. I was the chief assistant district attorney for Brunswick County. And then this opportunity arose. I don't think John necessarily wanted me to leave.
I don't think he was happy when this happened.
He was grateful for the public defender's office,
I
and he's been
know.
a huge supporter for me, which I'm appreciative of, because it's a good thing when the
Yeah.
PD's
He's
office
a-
can get along with the DA's office.
He's a great guy. We are so fortunate to have him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but and so you have been here how long?
I've lived in Brunswick County for 6 years. I've lived in Brunswick County for 6 years, but I grew up in Columbus County, so I've always been around.
Pretty much
Yeah.
home anyhow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you travel. You must travel in your work.
I do. So what happens is I have 16 assistant public defenders. Matthew is one of them. They handle the bulk of the cases. They do great work, and I assign them to locations. So I have an office in Brunswick. The county commissioners were wonderful. They gave us a great office in the courthouse. We asked them for that. Didn't think it could happen. They made a way to make it happen. Columbus did the same thing, and then Bladen did the same thing. So we have
Great.
an office in all 3. County commissioners were supportive everywhere. I have 8 APDs in Brunswick. I have 6 APDs in Columbus, 2 APDs in Bladen, and I roll between all 3 counties. Yesterday I was in Bladen. Tomorrow I'll be in Columbus,
There
just
you
checking
go.
in, seeing how things are going.
How interesting. You couldn't have asked for a better position.
I really couldn't, and I had great training at the DA's office because that was they mirror each other. So I got to.
Well,
roll
I
between
think
counties.
anybody who trains with John gets great training.
They do.
I'm partial.
Yes.
Matthew, tell us about you.
So I'm originally from New York. I was born and raised in Westchester County up there. We moved to Brunswick in June of 2024. Was sworn in as an assistant public defender with Jacob on July 8th of 2024. Haven't looked back since.
Do you miss New York?
Not necessarily. I miss my family up there. My wife misses her family, but I mean, we're more than happy down here in Brunswick. We couldn't have asked for a better place to come and live. We used to
Great.
come down here just to visit the beaches. We had family in Duplin, so we'd stay with them, come down here for the beach. And then when things just, got too tough in New York, we decided, hey, I was ready for a new job. I was an assistant district attorney up in there for just under 3 years, and I was ready to come back, do the work that I had previously done in law school, which was work for a defense clinic.
How different is it up there from here?
Law-wise, very different. My day-to-day, the way I approach cases, it's the same. I mean, up there, as an assistant district attorney, I always kind of try to find the holes in my cases and try to defend the people I was trying to prosecute to build a better case for myself. Down here, I do the opposite. I look at a case and I try to find how is my counterpart in the DA's office and try to convict my client and try to poke holes that way. So personally, it's not that different, but generally it is.
Well, I'm sure, like you said, the laws are. So
Yes.
it took you a little bit to get used to that. Took me a little bit to get used to those,
I'm
and
s-
I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to it. I never have some downtime. I kind of just pick open my books and read through it, try
Sure.
to get up on current stuff.
Yep. Well, that's great.
And that's one of the things, because every state has their own set of laws, and it's
Right.
it's not like you're applying federal law. You have to look at what the state law is, and then make sure it doesn't conflict with federal law. And, and that's where a lot of this, like with the immigration stuff and all right now, is they want federal law first, and the states are going, no, ours is no. That's not what the Constitution says. So
Right.
it's
Right. And it's like it varies so vastly from state to state. Even North Carolina and South Carolina are very different,
Yeah.
and we sit right beside each other. So that's a challenge. I've never. I took the bar in North Carolina. I've always been licensed in North Carolina. I've only practiced in North Carolina. So I admire Matthew and the ones that can come down and just jump in
Switch
and
gears.
just immersion. Like they just get dunked in it and have to figure out what to do and how to do it. And
I imagine it's almost like going to law school again, because you have to relearn everything you already know.
Yeah. Yeah, there were times where I felt that way.
Sure.
But, it's a welcome challenge.
Yeah.
That's great. What's your favorite part about this, Jacob?
my favorite part, believe it or not, I transitioned from being in court every single day, trying murder after murder and sex cases and just huge things with John's office. And doing that with John, I transitioned to administrative stuff and running the office and coordinating with our administrative office of the courts.
And you like that?
I do. And coordinating with IDS and hiring and supervising and setting up systems and setting up things to be efficient. And I really like that. And
That's
turns out
great.
I'm not bad at it.
Well, it's my understanding you're great at it.
Thank you.
I would think it'd probably be less headaches.
You would think that there's more headaches, but they're manageable. Like I still enjoy it. Because the good thing about when I was in the court every day, I had my caseload. I worried about my caseload. I worried about what I had to do every day. And now when I come to work, I have to worry about what 16 attorneys have to do every day and support staff and what they have to do every day. And are they getting enough support from me? Is there anything I can do to help them do their jobs better? Is there anything I can do to make their families' lives better? Because I care about everybody who works with our office. So it's a heavier burden, but I still enjoy it.
Great. Now, okay, so walk us through the process. Somebody gets arrested. They jumped in a car and took it because they had to get somewhere.
Sure.
What the heck? I don't know.
Sure.
Anyway, so and they're very they don't have a job, and their rent is due, and they're really in trouble. So what's the next step? What do they do?
Once they are arrested or a process is taken out on them, in North Carolina, a lot of the times it's law enforcement. who does the investigation, determines that there's probable cause that exists to charge somebody with a crime. They go to a magistrate, law enforcement does, and they swear out a warrant, or they go ahead and arrest them, either one. Either way, you end up in front of a magistrate. The law enforcement officer ends up in front of a magistrate and says, I believe they've committed this crime. They swear to it. They swear to all the facts that they have. The magistrate says, yes, there's probable cause, or no, there's not. If no, there's not, it ends. There's nothing to do to let the person go. If the magistrate determines there's probable cause, they're arrested. A magistrate will set an initial bond for the appearance, whatever it may be. Sometimes they set no bond. Then they go in front of a judge. If they're in custody, it's usually within 24 hours. They go in front of a judge for first appearances. I staff first appearances. There's a prosecutor there. One of our APDs is always there too. And then the judge will ask them if they want a court-appointed attorney or if they want to represent themselves, because you have the constitutional right to represent yourself if you want to, or if they're going to hire an attorney.
Do a lot of people represent themselves?
Not many. I would say I'd say in the excess of 95% end up with a court-appointed attorney.
Okay.
The vast majority. So they fill out paperwork that is prepared by AOC, which is our administrative office of the court. It's called an affidavit of indigency, where they list all their assets. The judge looks at it and says, yes, you qualify, or no, you don't qualify. The vast majority qualify because legal fees are expensive.
Right.
And then they'll appoint them to my office. Everything funnels through my office. So they appoint everybody to my office.
Okay, so wait a second. They don't go to court-appointed attorney at that point. They go first to your office.
Yes, they go to my office.
Okay.
So they ask the court to appoint you an attorney. The public defender is a court-appointed attorney. So they
I
appoint
see.
everything to
That's right. You do that now.
Correct. So it makes it easy on the judges. So they don't have to worry about
Right.
who has a conflict. If this person takes this level case, they just send it to my office and I take care of it.
Right.
And then my staff take it. They do conflict checks to see if we have a conflict of interest, whether it be we represent a co-defendant or the person charged is a victim or an alleged victim in another case. They go through and search the system. It's very involved.
So now, if this guy, you are already defending his sister, what happens then?
As long as they are not co-defendants, it's not on its face a conflict.
Okay.
As long as one's not going to testify against the other one or
Okay.
has some kind of information that could hurt the other one, on its face it's not a conflict. It could be, but the APD can figure that out, and then we can withdraw if we need to and reassign it outside of our office.
So where does it go if it goes outside your office?
We maintain a list that I approve, and my legal assistants and staff will go through and rotate who they give cases to. And we just got a new system called, they've rebranded it several times, Odyssey. They've called it ICMS, they've called it Odyssey, they called it Enterprise Justice, whatever you want to call it today.
There's an app for that.
There's a new system, and they literally can log into the computer system, and the state gives us access to assign cases. So we assign a case and send an order saying that it's been assigned to this person, and then let the attorney know it's been assigned to them.
Okay, so anyway, you're able to take this case, so now what?
Once we take the case, if it's internally, one of the legal assistants will assign it to an assistant public defender. That assistant public defender will go meet with the client if they're in custody, have the client come meet with them if they're out of custody, then go talk to the prosecutor about their case. And it just depends on the case. If it's weak, you can talk about a dismissal, you can talk about deferred prosecutions, talk about pleas, talk about trials. The prosecutor has to give you discovery in the case. It just becomes a very involved process from then on out.
Sure.
And it's very
So
fact-specific.
a lot of them don't even see court, do they?
Who?
Defendants.
A lot of the cases.
Most of them go through the court in some fashion. Even if it gets dismissed, they're usually in court for a little while because the DAs have a lot of cases too. It takes them a while to process them out. It may take a court appearance or two to figure out I'm missing something, or you know what, this person deserves a break, so we're going to do a conditional discharge, or we're going to do an informal deferred. So most of them see the inside of the courtroom. The vast majority never see a trial.
Okay.
And in district court, we don't do jury trials. It's only bench trials. Superior
Right.
courts for felonies, that's where the jury trials are. I'd say over 90% are disposed of by dismissal, plea, or some kind of deferral.
So, what do you find to be, Matthew, the most difficult thing here in working at this position?
No pressure.
Honestly, nothing
I
like
was thinking the same thing.
nothing comes to
Well,
mind.
I thought maybe, the difference in, being in New York and being here, that it might bring up some difficulties for
I mean, I was worried about that when I came down here, but when you break it down at the end of the day, if, like with your example, if somebody steals a car in North Carolina and somebody steals a car in New York, the bottom line is they stole a car. You're going to approach that case the same way. Or at least that's how I look at it.
you. Okay.
So that aspect of it really didn't affect me. Yeah.
So it's pretty, you've gotten used to it quite quickly?
I'd like to think so, yes.
He has done a phenomenal job. You would not know that he's been practicing in North Carolina less than a year.
Really?
Yes.
That's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Yes.
Great.
And I greatly enjoy it.
So, given the fact that you're quite busy, that must mean there are a lot of folks that need a public defender.
There are. So, and that's the other thing about our office. A lot of people, when they think the public defender's office is, it's only criminal. It's actually not. So we handle criminal defense. We handle juvenile delinquency defense. We handle DSS, abuse, neglect, and dependency when they take a child. We handle parent defense, defending the parents. We handle involuntary commitment defense. So when somebody is taken in and involuntarily committed, they get an attorney in a hearing. We handle that. We do guardianships. So we stand as guardian ad litems for minors who, for instance, may have had their parents die and they inherited some of their assets, and now somebody wants to be appointed as a guardian of their estate. They get us to say, well, I don't think that's in their best interest, or I do think that's in their best interest. So our scope is very, very large.
Yes, it is.
Because if you can be appointed an attorney for anything, my office can handle it.
Wow.
Yes.
I had no idea.
It's enormous.
Okay.
And it's up to the chief public defender what they cover. And some chief public defenders say, I'm only going to do adult criminal and everything else can be off a court-appointed list. I don't do that because I feel like the General Assembly has entrusted me to run this district, and they've entrusted me to safeguard the resources that they give us, because they give us great resources. So if my office can handle it, we're going to try to handle it. There are some things we don't do. We don't do child support. I just don't have enough attorneys to do that. But the extra things like IVC court, I just do it myself. Guardianships, there's not a ton of them. I'll just do it myself. And it saves the state money. It allows the client to get access to resources that we have. We have resources to Odyssey and resource to an investigator that works in our office that can help where it would be more of a struggle on a private attorney.
Right.
So I try to be judicious.
So now we have programs in this county. I'm not sure about the other two, but we have programs like Anchor Initiative.
We certainly do.
And so you are familiar and you do use that?
We work very closely with them. Most
Good.
of my APDs have the cell phone numbers for all the anchor people. And if they
Great.
have a client that they think would benefit, because that's the thing, sometimes people think our clients are all just horrible criminals. They're not. Like the vast majority are just people that have fallen on hard times,
Yep.
or have an addiction issue,
Yep.
or need help or access to mental health services.
Right.
And the sheriff's office is wonderful in this county.
It is.
And it really is. And they have all
Yes.
these programs. So we will use the Anchor Initiative to find placement for treatment for
Great.
substance abuse. We also use our treatment courts because not everywhere in the state has treatment courts.
No, we are so
We are
fortunate to have
very
that.
fortunate. And
I
Judge
know.
Disbrow does a great job
He
running
does.
those. So we funnel our people into treatment court to get them treatment. And what's great is we go to the treatment court graduations and you can see one of your clients and they're doing phenomenal and
Right.
they've gotten a job, and the cloud that was hanging over them you helped move,
Yeah.
which is huge.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Well, that's so good to hear because you work hand in hand with them, and I think these programs are so important.
They are.
It's like everyone says, you arrest them, you put them in jail, they come out and they do the same thing all over again
Right.
without even looking at it
Absolutely.
as some form of getting better. So that's wonderful.
And we have to look at it as some of our clients have committed crimes, and justice will be served in the end, one way or the other. We do our best to represent them zealously. We give zealous advocacy to everyone because everyone is entitled to that under the Constitution. And after we've given our all, whatever a jury says, that's justice, whether it's guilty or not guilty. And then if we get the case dismissed because something went wrong or rights were violated, that's justice. And then you also have to think some people that are charged are innocent, are absolutely 100% innocent. Either law enforcement was lied to, a mistake was
Is it hard
made.
to determine that? Or is it the facts that bring that to you?
Facts will bring that to you. And sometimes
Yes.
facts change. Sometimes law enforcement may collect the facts and things may change afterwards. And somebody else comes forward and says, the person you talked to lied and this is why they lied. And things change as the process goes on. And North Carolina, when you think of like the weaponization of prosecution, because that does happen. We have seen that across the country. There is
Yes.
weaponization of prosecution.
Unfortunately.
We don't have that issue here with like the DA's office. We don't have that issue here with law enforcement. But North Carolina is one of the only states that allows self-initiated warrants. So it does not involve law enforcement whatsoever. If I got mad at you, I could go to the magistrate and swear out that
I
you
know.
did something.
Yeah,
And they charge you, and you may be 150% innocent,
right.
but you still got charged.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the money to pay for an attorney, you don't know where to start. Like you don't know, most people don't know where to start when it comes to court or when it comes to being charged. You have to have somebody to help you, and we step in there too to help and protect people.
How easy is it to just swear out a warrant on someone?
Unfortunately, easy.
And that blows my mind. Don't
'Cause
they have to have some kind of proof or
They
facts of some sort?
They do. They sign an affidavit that they're telling the truth. And magistrates have a difficult job too because they may be telling the truth and they have to determine whether or not probable cause exists to issue a process. Probable cause is an exceptionally low standard. It's not that high.
I know, I
Beyond a
was
reasonable
gonna
doubt
say,
is
yeah.
super high. But probable cause to issue a warrant is very low. I will say this for the magistrates. They recognize that it's an issue. And a lot of times for self-initiated cases, they'll issue a criminal summons instead of a warrant, so you don't get arrested. You're just told to come to court on this court date. So they do have that. The General Assembly has given them that option in their toolbox to kind of help at least prevent people from just being hauled into
Well, thank goodness.
the jail.
Yeah.
And it also helps the jail too, because it costs
know.
money to house people.
Of course it does. And if somebody gets angry at somebody else, well, I think I'll just go swear out a warrant.
Yeah, and some people do abuse the system.
Yes, they do.
And then
Well, is anything done to them?
it can be. It is difficult. If a prosecutor can prove that they lied, they
On their
can charge
affidavit.
them with perjury, which is a felony. But proving someone is a liar, it's not always easy.
No, it's tough.
So it's a very difficult position to be in if you are the prosecutor. It's a very difficult position to be in if you're the magistrate. It's a very difficult position to be in if you're the defense attorney. So you just go through it and wade through it as best as you can.
And on that note, we have to pay a bill. So think about what you do, folks, before you do it. We will be right back. Stay with us. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, Attorney at Law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, everyone, to All Things Brunswick. We're continuing our conversation here, and this is getting interesting, which I could sit and talk to you guys all night. Like I told you, I geek out on Supreme Court decisions, so this is fun for me. In these cases where you're talking about people can go swear out on them, I understand your argument that it can give the police department an avenue if they suspect something, but they don't have probable cause. And probable cause is something that's kind of getting distorted in recent years, especially on social media. Well, the police can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do this. And I think some of that's kind of getting corrupted. Is this kind of like another tool to help work around that in some ways?
It's an avenue where sometimes it could be something simple like a misdemeanor larceny or a misdemeanor assault, where you call law enforcement and law enforcement gets there, and there's two very plausible stories, and they say, I don't know, and if I don't know, I'm not going to swear to it, and I can't do this. If you want to go talk to the magistrate yourself, you can. So law enforcement says, I'm not comfortable doing it. I'm not comfortable swearing that you were the aggressor or you took this. But you can go talk to a magistrate. So it gives the citizens an option of going to a magistrate and saying, this is what happened. And it eventually just lets the magistrate make the final decision, which probably not always necessarily fair to the magistrate because it puts them in a very difficult position.
Well, and then it's a he said, she said.
It is.
Well, that's what they signed up for, Jacob.
It is. That is true. That is true.
Come on.
And then the he said, she said, like, how do you determine credibility if you've just met these people? It's very difficult. And like I said, probable cause is a very low standard. So it ends up usually with us and a prosecutor to say, I think it's too weak to try it. And if it's too weak to try it, the prosecutor has an ethical obligation to dismiss it. And that's what we push for. So,
Right.
yeah.
Matthew, does it bother you if you have to work with teenagers and you know that they're in trouble?
Not at all. I handle a lot of the juvenile delinquency cases in our office, and I absolutely love it. I work with our social worker in the office, and we're constantly meeting with the juveniles in our cases.
Great.
And the way we explain it to them is the point of juvenile court isn't punishment. We're just trying to give these teenagers and these kids the resources to succeed in life. And that's what we push for, and that's what the judges push for. That's what the Department of Juvenile Justice pushes for, and the DAs in those cases. So that those are cases that I welcome, and I've told Jacob numerous times, keep them, give them to me, I'll take them.
Wonderful.
He's the only one that has said that.
That's great.
It's extremely rewarding, because you'll see, like Jacob was talking earlier about drug court, and where you can see one of your clients graduate. It's rewarding to see one of your clients go through that juvenile process.
Have that second chance.
Yeah.
And even to have the judge tell them, hey, you did it. Good for you.
Great. That's wonderful. So that's your favorite, huh?
Probably, I'd say that.
Yeah. Aren't you lucky?
I'm very lucky. Look, I am so grateful for every attorney that's good working in my office.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure. I just think that it would be the two things to me that would be very difficult is children who are being abused. I mean, how do you explain to that child they can't live with their parents anymore? You know, even though they're getting abused, they don't want to leave them.
And that's where our abuse, neglect, and dependency court comes in. So DSS plays a large role in that. DSS files a
So
petition.
what is that? How does that work?
It's a little different than criminal. They file a petition. It's essentially a civil court. They file a petition to remove a child from a parent because they're either abused, and there's just definition in the statute, which I don't know off the top of my head. They're neglected.
And that child is assigned an ad litem.
They are assigned a guardian ad litem, which is not done by my office. There's a separate GAL office that handles that.
Okay, now that's Judge Hankins, right?
This Judge Hankins Court, the guardian ad litem office. I'm not sure who runs our guardian ad litem office, if I'm being honest. They have a guardian ad litem attorney
Right.
who sits in court, and that court it's really weird for someone who's used to going in and looking like a criminal court because there's tables all across the front, and it's full of attorneys on any one case. And then you have like the attorney for DSS who has filed the petition that the child was abused or neglected or is dependent on the state for all of their needs. And you've got the guardian ad litem attorney who's the attorney for the child, not the attorney for DSS. Then you have one of our attorneys, which is the attorney for one of the parents. And sometimes you have a situation where there could be 3 or 4 parents or someone who stood in the place of a parent, and there's a legal parent, but there's someone who has custody, and it becomes very confusing, very involved.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. Trey Martin is our A&D attorney.
Oh, you are so lucky to have Trey.
I am.
Gee, I forgot he works for you.
Yes. So he handles the abuse, neglect, and dependency, and that's like another one that's very rewarding for him when a parent may have strayed a little bit or had an issue or some kind of addiction and ended up losing their child, works with DSS, finds their way back and gets reunited with their child. It's huge. It's wonderful.
Oh, I can't even imagine that feeling. That would be so awesome.
Those are the best feelings in that
Oh,
court. Now,
yes.
there are days where those are not
I know.
the end result, and there are termination of parental rights and adoptions.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
those are the sadder and heavier days.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what I always tell my people is everyone has the right to an attorney. Everyone has the Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. I don't care what they've done. I don't care who they are. I don't care what race they are, what political affiliation they are. I don't care. They have a right to zealous advocacy under our Constitution.
Yep.
And our Constitution is wonderful. Our system of justice is the best in the world.
It is.
So is it flawed? Sure. There's no perfect system.
No.
But zealous advocacy is all we can provide for our clients, and that's what I strive to do every day.
And I think that's why they placed you where they did.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You're perfect for this.
Thank you.
When I heard about it, I said, okay, they did good. And then Trey told me he was leaving private practice and he was going to, I went, wow, this is awesome.
It is. I'm very grateful. The whole process of becoming the public defender was new, and I had to go through a bar election. And I was very humbled that no one ran against me. The entire bar in all 3 counties
They knew better.
just came and voted. And then the senior residents get to appoint for 4-year terms. I served 4-year terms, and Jason Disbrow and Ashley Gore and Columbus Bladen were the ones that appointed me, and I could not be more grateful.
I know.
Yeah.
And they're 2 special judges.
Oh,
right
I
there.
love them. They're great. And
me
then
too.
I'm also grateful that we have Charlie Miller
Oh, yes.
and Frank Eiler and everybody, and Bill Rabin, everybody in the Senate, everybody in the House that thought enough of it to approve it
Right.
and thought that it would better our justice system. And it has. It's led to more efficiency in the system. It's led to fewer people sitting in jail longer, which costs the county less money.
I know. I am just pleased that we now have the public defender here
Me too.
because, you know, we live in a very rural area
We
when
do.
you think about it.
For
And
now.
There's a lot of folks.
For now.
There's a lot of folks here that have lived here forever, but they live on like a farm type
Yes.
place. They don't have a lot of money. They're used to living off the land. Lord knows they don't even think about a court case. I mean, why would they? And if that's how they end up, how in the world are they going to take care of themselves, you know?
And you never know. You don't ever intend to be entangled with the justice
No.
system, but it happens.
It does
Oh, yeah.
happen, unfortunately, and more so as this crazy world goes on.
Right.
So we definitely needed it here, and they saw that we needed it. So that's
Agreed.
great. Yep. And
Is it often hard to try to keep yourself distant, especially like in child cases and all?
It depends on the attorney. Every attorney is different. There are some attorneys who can't handle individual cases. I will say for me, I don't struggle in any particular case or area just because I believe in the Constitution and I believe that everyone deserves zealous advocacy. So I don't get personally involved in the case. I just do my best on any case that I'm on. I'll let Matthew answer how he feels.
I would think on child cases, though, sometimes it's hard not to get kind of drawn in a little bit emotionally.
I'd agree with Jacob. I mean, that's not something that I struggle with. That may be my background as a prosecutor in New York kind of
Hardened you a little bit.
hardened, yeah, there you go. That's the word. Hardened me a little bit. So, nothing that has come across my desk yet that I've had to step away from. I still, I'll zealously represent my clients. I'll sit there at my desk and ask, if I was in their shoes, would I want my attorney to do X, Y, and Z? Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to go and do an X, Y, and Z. Because I'd want someone zealously representing me and advocating for me, and that's what I try to reciprocate to them.
I would never make it.
And it's not for everybody. It's not for every attorney. Attorneys find their little niche, and that's what they do.
My heart's too soft.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I don't know.
Now, when you're, say, like a child abuse case, I know you're dependent on social services and all a lot, but do you do your own investigation?
Yes.
Or do you basically go off the reports of
Yes.
DSS?
There was a child abuse that was charged not long ago, and our investigator went and did a full-fledged investigation, and that case turned out differently than what they thought it was going to be when they charged it. It was not as bad, and it was more of an accidental thing as opposed to intentional. So we have an investigator named Celicia. She's fantastic. She rolls around and interviews people and takes measurements and takes temperatures of water and all kinds of other things. Like, she's very involved.
Yeah.
She knows her stuff.
Yes. We don't just rely on what we've been given. We rely partially on it if it's weak, but then you always have to double check.
I asked that because I actually, DSS took a little girl lives down the street, single mother. They took her daughter from her for a week because she went to school, had a bruise on her face and a bruise on her shoulder. Well, I happened to be out there when that occurred. She was running in the backyard, tripped over a root, and bounced off a tree.
Right.
But it was automatically she was guilty of abuse. But the thing is, she couldn't take her child back to that daycare. They banned her from being there, even though she wasn't guilty of anything.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
difficult.
why I ask if you folks do your own checks
We
and
do.
all.
Absolutely.
And then it's a situation like you just described. Enter the public defender's office, like Trey Martin in A&D court or Matthew in the criminal side, whatever it is. They look at it and say, this doesn't seem quite right, or there may be another logical explanation. Celicia does an investigation, and we try to get it done as fast as possible because, I'm a parent. If somebody tries to take my child, I'm going to be irate.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, you got some cases I've heard of where they put them in closets and
Yeah.
leave them in there and stuff like that and all.
Yeah.
But young kids are going to get bruised up playing.
Yep.
It just
I got a little boy.
happens.
He's rough.
And,
I
yeah.
get it.
I have a granddaughter and a grandson, and my granddaughter's 3 years older than my grandson, and she's the king, and if he doesn't do what she says, she's going to throw him around.
Absolutely.
And so that's
Ooh, a
yeah,
bully.
and so it's easy because people want to protect children automatically, but sometimes they kind of go a little over instead of talking to the parent, finding out, is this a reoccurring thing, that
Right.
sort of thing.
Which is why it's so vital to have someone to advocate for that parent. who knows how the system works and who knows the next step and what's gonna, like, one of the biggest fears I think all of our clients have is what's gonna happen next, because they don't know. And the unknown is terrifying.
Absolutely.
So having somebody that can sit down and say, this is what's gonna happen, this is what you should expect, even that is huge.
Right. Now, do you work closer with law enforcement or with the judicial system?
We work closer with the judicial system. So law enforcement, their goal is always criminal prosecution. We still talk to them. We don't have a negative relationship, I would say, with them whatsoever. But the prosecutors work close with law enforcement, whereas we work close with our investigator or other witnesses. It just depends on the case.
Right. I often wondered about that. So,
We will call and talk to law enforcement, and for the most part, North Carolina's open discovery. They're open books. They tell you everything that they have, and they're supposed to anyway, and they do.
yeah, that's probably the most important thing, discovery, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
essential.
how can you even relate to a case if you don't have that? Yeah.
It's no matter whatever case you get, that's the starting point. It's essential. It's working without it is almost like working blind. And going back to something we had touched on previously with those self-initiated warrants, and Jacob had mentioned that usually it's on its face when someone's completely innocent. That discovery packet is the face. Once we get
Really?
that,
Okay.
it'll be there in black and white. And we're fortunate enough that we work in the same building as the DAs, where we can go upstairs, review it with them, and come to a resolution in a case, in a 20-minute conversation or so.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great.
But that's by design.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our office location, like all of it, we tried to build the office as efficiently as we can, because they're different everywhere. In some districts, the PD's office and the DA's office do not get along, and they hate each other. And
that's sad.
it's just a very tense working relationship, and your clients suffer if that's the case. We don't have that issue. We get along great with the DA's office, and in court, you may think, God, they hate each other. And it may look like we hate each other.
Well,
We actually don't. Everybody's just doing their job, and no one takes it personally.
I think you see more of that division in bigger cities.
That is true.
They kind of go on their wins and losses a lot more.
Right.
Because they want to move up the ladder or whatever. Brunswick County, we just want what's right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'll say that, we don't hold any animosity towards anybody at the DA's office, and I don't think they hold any towards us. I hope they don't. So we
We'll
try
ask
to.
them.
But at the end of the day, you recognize that they have their role and they have their job, and we have our role and we have our job. They are different. How we approach them is different, but we still have to do it together. So you
But
can't.
don't you think because you both worked in that position that it's easier for you to understand that yes, they
Yeah.
have their job and you have your job?
Certainly for me, and I've used my experience as an assistant district attorney to relate to the DAs in our county and to come to resolution in cases.
Right.
And I was the same way in New York. While I was an ADI, I had the same view of defense attorneys up there. They have a job.
Yep.
They need to do something. It's easier for me to work with them.
Right.
Oh, I would think that would be, to me, that would be a requirement. You have to work at the DA's office for a while before you can do this.
It's great experience. And then there's also some people in our office who have, there's one, the chief assistant public defender I have, Emily Byram. She was APD, and then she worked at the Capitol Defender's office. And now she's
Wow.
working in my office, so she's got tons of experience.
Yes.
So it's really great that when you get to build an office from nothing and you're just given these positions to pick people.
Yep.
Like, and they pick all the time, like on paper. If you looked at all my people, you'd probably be like, I don't know if they get along, but they all do. Like, they all have different personalities.
That's great.
They all have different strengths and weaknesses, and they all boost each other up and help each other, which is phenomenal. And you get to see that firsthand. It's incredible.
I think that is great. And on that note, we're going to pay bills again. So, folks, stay with us for this great conversation. What a great place we all call home. from colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Folks, to All Things Brunswick. We're having a great discussion today with the chief of our public defender's office and one of his attorneys that works with him. I have a question for you. Did you ever have an outcome that you felt was wrong?
I wouldn't say so.
No, never, not once.
At this point in my career, no, I haven't.
Wow.
Yeah, I try. I mean, the facts are what the facts are in each and every case. And like Jacob was saying before, at the end of the case, however they may end up, that's justice. So that's how I view everything that I've done. But I can't think of one thing that I would
I
have
think
done or
that
changed
reflects
differently.
on your good work.
I appreciate
Don't
that.
you
Thank
I
you.
absolutely agree.
I
Because he's
appreciate
right.
that.
At the end of the day, not every result is what you think it's going to be, but you need to be okay with the end result because you know you've done all that you can do. And at the end of the day, no one person controls the judicial system, which is what it's supposed to be.
Right. But what I'm asking is if somebody is convicted that you really feel is innocent, have you ever experienced that?
No.
If that's the case, you can there's avenues. There's motion. There's appeals. There's something called motions for appropriate relief, which
So
we can
do you talk to your client then about it?
Yes.
And say we need to do this?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because once you do that, like Matt said, once you do that, you know that you've done all you can do, and you think it's wrong. Next step's to appeal it. Like there's always a next step. You're never out of options. I don't feel in the system. There's always, well, let's appeal it. Let's look at this. And there is an end. There is a termination point where it's over. But for the most part, if you do everything you can do, you need to, if you've done everything you can do, you can't carry it with you.
Okay.
Well, doesn't that then just become a matter of it's justice and it's fair?
At the end of the day, if
That's how you have to.
That's what you kind of have to do. I've never been in a position where I've had a client go to death row where I thought they were innocent or something like that. So I guess I would feel differently
Yeah.
in something like that.
Yeah.
Or if it was like a murder and they got life without parole and I felt they were truly innocent, that would be a lot more difficult to handle. Now, the stuff that happens every day, like Matthew was talking about, I feel like you're more at peace with that. But I've never felt it. That doesn't mean not attorneys in my office have not felt it. I will say that.
So you have actual cases that go that far? Life without parole? And
Yes. There are people in my office that represent murder cases, yes.
Wow.
And in North Carolina, first-degree murder is punished by death or life without parole. Those are the only two options.
Wow.
So it's like there's heavy stuff in our office. There's happy stuff and there's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And we've got very experienced people that deal with it all and give their all every day and are zealous advocates. And I'm also exceptionally grateful that there are also people in the private sector, our private attorneys, that step up and have a heart of public service and say, I'll take your conflict cases and I'll take cases that you need to shed or outsource for the day for whatever reason. the system wouldn't function without them. So while I'm very grateful that there's a public defender's office, it's also, I'm grateful that there are other attorneys who care that much about the justice system that will stand up and say, I'll do this for pennies on the dollar.
Right.
I'm not doing it to get rich, but I feel I have a calling.
Yep.
And we have a lot in Brunswick County. And I just want to recognize that and be very grateful for them.
Oh, I know. I'm sure we do. There are so many wonderful people.
So
there.
many.
And everyone's always working together.
Yes, I know. Isn't that great? It
Absolutely.
is, it's really a super
Now, if we
place
could just
to
get
live.
the whole country like that.
Well, I'll see what I can do with the district, then we'll move on. We'll move on.
Now, is this the case in all three of the counties that you work in?
Yes, the bar in Columbus is very great, same way. And we get along great. Obviously, the DA's office is the same. The clerk's office is different. We get along with them great. Bladen's a little different because it's so small. They are considered a legal desert. They don't have enough attorneys. But the attorneys that are there that can help do help. And I appreciate them so much for that. But Bladen is a legal desert, so it's more difficult out there.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I know, actually, I think one attorney from that area, and you're fortunate to have him. But the thing is that, like I said, all three counties being as rural as they are, and I don't want to say poor, but they're just not.
Rich.
They're just not New Hanover.
We don't have the resources that
No.
New Hanover or Mecklenburg or
No.
Wake, like we don't have the tax base for it.
Exactly.
But I think what these three counties do with the tax base that we have is nothing short of incredible.
I agree with you.
They
I
spend
absolutely
well.
agree. Yeah.
They invest in us. The General Assembly invests in us. IDS sent me a report this week that said since your office started, they looked at January of 2023 and they said we paid out almost $50,000 in legal fees.
Wow.
And they said in January of 2025 they paid out 30.
Wow.
So there's a huge, and that's
That is a huge
that's for 1
difference.
month. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
It allowed the private bar to breathe. It allows them to
Yes.
focus on some cases.
Yep.
And leads more efficiency within the court system.
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful that the state is as fiscally responsible as they are, and that this district is.
Okay, so this is a newbie, and what do you want to see happen, Jacob, with your office?
I'd like it to continue to expand. As we grow, we're going to have to expand. Like as Brunswick gets bigger, and it's not going to slow down. We just talked about it won't be rural forever. I would like to see it expand and grow. I trust that the General Assembly will continue to invest in us. But I would like to see more resources for the judicial system as a whole. I think it's better for our clients, and not just talking about my office and trying to suck up all the resources I can. I think we all work together, and I'm grateful the state has been so generous to the judicial system, and we have a fantastic judicial system. So I hope it continues to grow. I hope my office continues to grow. I hope I continue to get great attorneys like Matthew, like the ones that work for me now that are, they're top notch. People sometimes say, oh, well, you're just a public defender. They're public defenders, and they have a heart of gold, and I would put any of my people up against anybody in the private sector any day.
And they're just as important as the prosecutor.
Oh, more so
Yes.
in this area?
Yes.
So tell me something. Do you have everything you need now, or are you lacking?
We are lacking in support staff, which I've already talked to the General Assembly about, and I think they're going to fix it. They expanded our district. Initially, when they created it, they were just going to do Brunswick, and then they had structured it for that. And then as the budget bounced back and forth between the Senate and the House, they said, well, hey, let's do the whole district, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So they doubled the number of attorneys, and the support staff didn't get quite as allocated. But I've already talked to them. I'm confident they're going to fix that.
So who is that? Who exactly is that you're lacking?
Legal assistance
Okay.
because
Yeah. So they need to do the work that you don't have the time to do.
Correct. And the work of the constant influx of cases, someone
Right.
has to screen them, someone has to conflict check them, assign them out and do like paperwork and orders to get that done. And there's reporting requirements
Yeah.
for IDS and for AOC and for the General Assembly.
We
So a
have
lot
to
of
do
that.
all that. That's part of everything
Yes.
now.
Yes. Like everything, computers are supposed to make it more simple, and it adds a few steps.
Yeah, right.
But we're doing fantastic. We're doing great. I cannot thank the General Assembly enough, and I'm confident that they're going to take care of us for years to come, I'm sure.
Well, this has been a very interesting show, and we are unfortunately about out of time. But I want to thank you both so much for all that you do and for coming on the show today. I know that our audience has learned as much as I have today.
Well, we're happy to
Very-
come back anytime.
Oh,
Thank you for having
please
us.
do come
Yes,
back.
thank
Come back and see us and talk some more about this. It's very interesting, and it's just, I am so happy that we now have this office here.
too.
It's great. And thank you, Mr. Todd, for joining me today,
Always.
and TK. Folks, please join us again for All Things Brunswick. Next week, we will have 2 more guests that work in the county and are here to serve you. If you have any questions or you would like something in particular, please get up with us. Let us know. We are here to serve you. Have a wonderful week and good night.